The split second your paycheck drops into your bank account, you have roughly 15 seconds before your brain begins guiding you toward disastrous financial decisions. I'm not kidding. 15 seconds is all it takes for most individuals to mentally spend money they haven't even laid eyes on yet. Your mind starts tallying up how much you can blow on that new gadget, how many times you can treat yourself to take out this month, or whether you can finally snag those shoes that have been collecting virtual dust in your online cart since last Tuesday. But what if I told you that those same 15 seconds could be the deciding factor between remaining trapped in a cycle of financial hardship and actually creating lasting wealth? What if there was a simple, repeatable system you could implement every single time you get paid, one that would instantly put you ahead of 90% of people financially? My name is Gen Z Invest, and I've spent years guiding people through exactly what to do with their money the moment it shows up in their accounts. If you're sick of wondering where all your cash disappears to every month, and you genuinely want to build something substantial with your income, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. If this information proves helpful to you, here's something that might take you by surprise. The average person has absolutely no idea what happens to their money after they receive it. They know their rent somehow gets paid, food magically appears in their kitchen, and their Netflix subscription renews itself without a second thought. But beyond that, it's pure financial mayhem. They're essentially financial sleepwalkers, drifting through life wondering why they never have anything left over at the end of the month. The reality is that most people treat their paycheck like an unexpected birthday present rather than the powerful wealth-building instrument it truly is. They get excited when it arrives, blow most of it on random items they probably don't need, and then spend the following 2 weeks eating cereal for dinner and obsessively refreshing their bank balance. But successful individuals do something entirely different. They have a framework, they have a consistent process, and that process kicks into action the moment their paycheck lands. It's not complicated, it's not flashy, and it definitely won't earn you 1 million followers on social media, but it gets results. And it works so effectively that once you adopt it, you'll be baffled by how you ever handled your finances any other way. The secret lies in recognizing that your paycheck isn't merely money you earned, it's your future financial independence, sliced into monthly portions. Every dollar that enters your account is a tiny building block that can either add to your wealth or disappear into the void of careless spending. Most people approach their money backward. They settle all their bills, purchase whatever they desire, and then attempt to save whatever remains. Spoiler alert, there's never anything left. It's like attempting to fill a bucket with a massive hole at the bottom and questioning why you can't retain any water. The individuals who actually accumulate wealth reverse this entire process. They compensate themselves first, assign every dollar with purpose, and make their money work just as diligently as they did to obtain it. They recognize that financial achievement isn't about generating more income, although that certainly helps, right? It's about having a system that functions regardless of how much you earn. Consider it this way. If you earn $50,000 annually and you consistently save and invest 10% of it, you'll end up in a stronger financial position than someone who makes $100,000 a year but spends every cent they bring in. The person earning less but adhering to a system will retire comfortably, while the higher earner will be working until they're 80 because they never mastered how to manage what they had. This leads us to the cornerstone of everything we're going to discuss today. Before you can accumulate wealth, you need to know precisely where your money is flowing, and I mean precisely. Not some vague notion about your significant expenses, but a detailed understanding of how every dollar is distributed. The initial step in our paycheck routine is something that sounds mundane but is absolutely vital to your financial success. You need to determine what portion of your income goes toward essentials. These are the things you genuinely cannot survive without. We're discussing housing costs like rent or your mortgage payment, food that actually sustains you, fundamental transportation, essential utilities, and healthcare. Notice I didn't include your premium cable package, your gym membership you never use, or your subscription to 17 different streaming services. Those might feel indispensable when you're binge-watching your favorite series, but they're not actually necessary for your survival. Here's where most people get this completely backward. They examine their expenses and persuade themselves that everything is essential. That expensive car payment becomes necessary transportation. The daily coffee shop trips become required fuel for productivity. The weekly restaurant dinners become essential social activities. But here's the reality check you probably don't want to hear. If you're spending more than 60% of your take-home pay on genuine necessities, you're either residing somewhere too costly for your income, or you're labeling luxuries as necessities because it makes you feel better about your spending habits. Let me provide a concrete example that might help put this in perspective. Imagine someone earning $75,000 annually. After taxes, they're bringing home roughly $4,750 each month. If their rent is $1,800, their car payment is $400, and they spend $500 on food, they're already at $2,700 in monthly expenses. That's about 57% of their take-home pay, which is actually fairly reasonable for someone living in a higher-cost region. But here's where it gets interesting. That same person might examine their budget and feel like they're barely getting by, especially if they're also covering streaming services, dining out regularly, buying coffee daily, and making other minor purchases that seem trivial individually but accumulate to hundreds of dollars monthly. The key is being brutally honest about what you actually require versus what you desire. Your future financial freedom depends on your capacity to make this distinction clearly and consistently. Once you know your true necessity percentage, you'll know exactly how much money you have available for everything else, and everything else is where the transformation occurs. This is where you can start building wealth instead of merely surviving from one paycheck to the next. The second crucial step happens before you even consider spending money on anything enjoyable or optional. You need to ensure you're keeping up with any debt payments you might have. This isn't about eliminating all your debt immediately, although that's certainly a worthwhile objective. It's about safeguarding your credit score and steering clear of late fees that can derail your financial progress. Your credit score is like your financial reputation, and in our current economic system, that reputation influences nearly everything. It determines what interest rate you'll pay on a mortgage, whether you can qualify for a decent car loan, and sometimes even whether you can rent an apartment or secure certain jobs. Here's something that might catch you off guard about credit scores. The difference between outstanding credit management and poor credit management often comes down to just one missed payment. If you make 99% of your payments on time, that's considered good. But if you slip to 97% on-time payments, your credit score plummets dramatically. Consider that for a moment. In school, 97% would earn you an A in credit scoring. It gets you labeled as a high-risk borrower. The credit system isn't forgiving, but the rules are straightforward. Make your minimum payments on time, every time, and your credit score will take care of itself. This step isn't glamorous, and it won't make you feel wealthy, but it's absolutely essential for long-term financial success. Consider it the groundwork that everything else is constructed upon. Now that we've addressed the groundwork, it's time to discuss something that most people completely overlook until it's too late: establishing an emergency fund. I know emergency funds are about as thrilling as watching paint dry in slow motion. But stay with me here, because this might be the most critical component of your entire financial strategy. An emergency fund is exactly what it sounds like. It's money you set aside for when life decides to throw you a curveball. And trust me, life loves throwing curveballs. Your car breaks down the day before your big presentation. Your laptop fails right when you need it most. Your dog consumes something expensive and requires emergency surgery. A typical Tuesday. The objective is to have 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved in an account that you can access immediately. Not invested in the stock market where it might lose value precisely when you need it most. Not locked away in some certificate of deposit where you can't touch it for 6 months. Simply sitting there in a boring savings account, prepared to rescue you when everything falls apart. Let's revisit our earlier example. If someone's monthly necessities total $2,700, Their emergency fund should be somewhere between $8,000 and $16,000. That might sound like an unattainable amount of money to save, especially if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck. But remember, you're not attempting to save it all at once. Here's the thing about emergency funds that nobody discusses: they're not just about the money, they're about peace of mind. When you have 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in your savings account, you sleep differently at night. You walk into work with greater confidence because you know that if something happens to your job, you won't be eating ramen noodles and living in your car next month. But here's where most people mess this up entirely. They think their emergency fund needs to be generating impressive returns, so they invest it in high-risk assets or lock it up in accounts they can't access quickly. Then, when an actual emergency occurs, their money is either worth less than when they put it in, or they can't access it without paying penalties. Your emergency fund should be liquid and exciting. Place it in a high-yield savings account that's insured by the government and call it a day. You're not trying to get rich off your emergency fund. You're trying to remain financially stable when life gets unpredictable. Once your emergency fund is in place, you've officially advanced from financial survival mode to wealth-building mode. This is where things get interesting, and it's where most people begin to see genuine progress toward their financial objectives. Step 4 is where you start investing for your future self, and this is where the magic of compound interest begins to operate in your favor. If your employer offers any type of retirement plan with matching contributions, this should be your absolute top priority for investing. Think about employer matching this way. If your boss walked up to you every month and offered to give you free money in exchange for you putting some of your own money into a retirement account, you'd think they'd lost their mind, right? But that's literally what employer matching is. It's free money that most people leave on the table because they don't grasp how powerful it is. Let's say your company matches 3% of your salary and you make $60,000 per year. That means if you contribute $1,800 annually to your retirement account, your employer will also contribute $1,800. You just doubled your money instantly. Show me another investment that guarantees a 100% return on day one. Beyond the employer match, you should aim to invest about 10% of your gross income for retirement. This might sound like a lot, especially if you're just starting out. But remember, this money is working for you over decades. The earlier you begin, the less you'll need to contribute each month to reach your retirement targets. Here's something that might astonish you about retirement investing. If someone starts investing $300 per month at age 25 and earns an average return of 8% annually, they'll have around $1 million by age 65. But if they delay until age 35 to start investing the same amount, they'll only have about $400,000 at retirement. That 10-year postponement costs them roughly $600,000. Time is literally money when it comes to investing, and every month you delay starting is money you're discarding. But here's what's truly wild about this step. Most people overanalyze it to the point where they never actually begin investing. They spend months investigating the perfect investment strategy, reading about different fund options, and scrutinizing expense ratios like they're attempting to solve world hunger. The truth is, for most people, a straightforward diversified index fund that mirrors the overall stock market is perfectly sufficient for building wealth over time. You don't need to select individual stocks, forecast the market, or outsmart professional investors. You just need to start investing consistently and let compound interest handle the heavy work. Once you've got your retirement investing on autopilot, it's time to address any debt that's not your mortgage. This is where things can become emotionally charged, because debt often represents past mistakes or circumstances beyond our control. There are two main approaches for paying off debt, and both of them are effective if you actually commit to them. The first is called the avalanche method, where you eliminate debts with the highest interest rates first. Mathematically, this saves you the most money in interest payments over time. The second approach is the snowball method, where you pay off your smallest debts first. Regardless of interest rates, this isn't the most financially optimal approach, but it can be incredibly motivating because you watch debts disappear quickly. which gives you momentum to continue. I personally prefer the snowball method because personal finance is more about psychology than mathematics. If paying off your smallest debt first keeps you motivated to carry on with the process, then that's the right strategy for you, even if it costs you a few extra dollars in interest. The key is selecting one method and adhering to it until all your non-mortgage debt is eliminated. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't switch approaches halfway through. And definitely don't ignore your debt hoping it will miraculously vanish. After you've handled your employer retirement match and you're making headway on debt payments, you can start exploring other investment options, like opening your own retirement accounts or investing in taxable brokerage accounts. A Roth retirement account is particularly appealing because all your gains grow completely tax-free. You pay taxes on the money you contribute now, but when you retire and start withdrawing funds, you won't owe any taxes on the growth. It's like planting a tree today and never having to pay taxes on the fruit it produces for the rest of your life. The contribution limits for these accounts change annually, but the concept remains the same. You're investing money that you've already paid taxes on, and in exchange, all future growth is yours to keep without sharing it with the government. For your regular investment accounts outside of retirement plans, the tax situation is different. You'll pay capital gains taxes when you sell investments for a profit, but the tax rate depends on how long you held the investment. Hold it for more than a year, and you'll qualify for lower long-term capital gains rates. Hold it for less than a year, and you'll pay regular income tax rates on any gains. This is why successful investors think long-term. They're not attempting to get rich quick by buying and selling stocks constantly. They're building wealth gradually and steadily while minimizing the amount they pay in taxes along the way. The final step that ties everything together is probably the most important one, and it's the step that distinguishes people who actually build wealth from people who just talk about building wealth. You need to automate everything we just discussed. Here's the thing about willpower: it's like a muscle that fatigues throughout the day. You might wake up Monday morning feeling motivated to manage your money perfectly, but by Thursday evening, when you're exhausted from work and stressed about life, that motivation has completely evaporated. You'll glance at your bank account and think, "I'll just transfer money to savings next week when I have more energy." Spoiler alert, next week, you'll have even less energy. This is why automation is absolutely essential. When your money moves automatically according to your plan, you remove human emotion and procrastination from the equation entirely. Your money gets allocated properly whether you're having a good day or a terrible day, whether you're motivated or completely drained. Here's how I personally handle automation, and you can copy this system exactly if you want. When my paycheck hits my checking account, I let it sit there for exactly 1 day. Not because the money needs time to clear, but because I'm cautious about timing and I want to make sure everything processes correctly. Then, on the day after I get paid, automatic transfers happen like clockwork. A predetermined amount moves from my checking account to my savings account. From there, other automatic transfers move money to specific goals. Maybe some goes to my emergency fund if I'm still building it up. Maybe some goes to my investment accounts. Maybe some goes to a separate account where I set aside money for taxes if I'm self-employed. The beautiful aspect of this system is that I never have to think about it. I never have to remember to shift money around. I never have to resist the temptation to spend money that should be allocated toward my future. It just happens automatically, like my rent payment or my phone bill. But here's where most people mess up automation completely. They establish all these automatic transfers and then neglect to adjust them when their circumstances change. They receive a raise at work but keep saving the same dollar amount instead of increasing their savings rate. They pay off a debt but forget to redirect that monthly payment toward investments. They're operating on financial autopilot, but they never update their flight plan. This paycheck routine isn't rocket science, but it works because most people never actually implement a system. Start treating your money like the wealth-building instrument it is. Instead of monopoly money you discovered between your couch cushions, automate everything. Stay committed to the plan, and in 5 years, You'll be amused by how straightforward it was while everyone else is still wondering where their money vanished to.